because the 60s was this time when the Brown decision had come down in 1954. And so they were starting all this dismantling of Jim Crow. And so Jim Crow were the laws that basically gave white men first choice in jobs, in schools, and whatever. You only got whatever was left over. And so once the law said that they didn't have to get everything without competition, there became like a war to keep the power, a war to keep the wealth, but most of all, a war to keep the benefits of Jim Crow. And so when you had people like my father who was fighting and trying to get the basic right to vote, there was always a backlash. So people all over the South who were rising up as leaders were being put down through violence. And so what was particularly important about our area was that we were three parishes, Mississippi Delta parishes, back to back to back, one right under the other. And every one of them had at least 75% Black population. So it was really critical that none of the Black people in those parishes not vote. And that was all about power control, no Black legislators, no Black congressmen. And so that was the life into which I came, and it was a years of terror, pure terrorism.
Mm. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, Miss Cleo. Miss Dorothy, before I ask you a question, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Just briefly, native New Yorker, will always be uptown, uptown. You know how we do. Been here in Charleston about 20 years. Worked as a trainer for a local call center and went on to become a master trainer for our client. I took a lot of pride in my role as a trainer because it gave me an opportunity to come into contact with some of our young people and to instill in them some thoughts and ideas, especially in this time of, I guess I would say, burgeoning racial unrest that's starting to happen, but to sort of change some attitudes and some thoughts and some ideas that they had and help them understand that it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to be wonderful. It's okay to be fabulous and good at what you do and proud of who you are. Um, so I really, really appreciated it. It's something that I wanted to do. So I did. And I did it for about 8 years. And I can look back now and see the lives that have been changed and look at these young men and women who have come into their own and actually be proud of the impact that I had. So, I mean, I don't have a grand story to tell except that I wanted to be a part of my community. I wanted to be the change that I was seeking. And that's basically what I did.
You are an awesome trainer. I will tell you that. Absolutely, you're an awesome trainer. Um, Miss Dorothy, you're one of the best trainers I've ever encountered. Your trademark phrase, "I'm fabulous every day," is etched in the tablets of my mind. We now live in times that are less than fabulous every day. What was it like growing up in New York in the 70s, and why do people get convenient amnesia when we want to talk about the past?
I don't really think that the amnesia is convenient because a lot of people want to talk about it. I think the problem is the proper articulation and being able to present a truthful narrative. So we've sort of learned how to gloss things over. In the 70s, we were coming into the age of disco, and then that was taken over by, the upcoming hip hop era. And all of these things were changing. Everything was happening so fast that nobody really had an opportunity to really think about Then I don't think, and I think the kids in the street say woke. Back then I was aware, but I don't think I was as woke as some of these young people are today. So I don't think that we conveniently don't remember what was happening, but we were busy trying to get underneath it and do something different. Yeah, we knew about slavery, we knew about racism, and we knew about these things, but we weren't as prepared as we are right now.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, Miss Dorothy. Miss Annie Lee Whitlock. Miss Annie Lee, tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Coy, Alabama, and that's down in like heart of Dixie. And down there, we knew our place where our family was kind of close, but we didn't know that we was treated different. But as long as we was stayed in our place, long as we stayed in our place, like my aunt would cook and clean and raise children for the white peoples, that was good enough there. But we still wasn't equal. We could not say yes or no to the peoples, to the white peoples, even the people that was our own peers. We had to say yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But in order for us not to say anything, because my mother was the type of mother that she was a strong woman. And when someone wanted us to say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, we would forbid to do it. Because at the time, my mother was raised, because when she was 7 months old, her mother died when she was 7 months old. So she was raised by her father, which is my grandfather, and about 17 siblings, sisters and brothers. So, and then kind of like this white lady kind of took over my mother. And so my mother got to the point that she could care less what she said to him, because she played with them, in the yard. She did all of that. And so she kind of had a handle on them. So we saw how strong my mother was. We decided that she ain't said yes, ma'am, and yes, sir to them. So we're not going to do it either. So we wouldn't do it. But tragedy struck our house, our home, when I was 5 years old. My brothers, one brother was 16, one brother was 14, one was 12. One sister was, I think, was 10. My brother that I'm next to was 9. I was 5. And also, my mother was pregnant with my baby brother when my father got home and incarcerated. So my oldest brother, my 3 oldest brother, had to cut my father down from the tree. And his hand was tied behind his back. And they said that it was suicide.
Mm.
And then it couldn't be suicide if a man's hand was tied behind his back. And they sent us all this stuff like was in the paper and all this. And then this been happening since 1954, which I had got myself kind of used to it. Went to the doctor, found out that I was sick, but I wasn't sick. But I was sick from the tragedy. You know how stuff travel with you, stay with you. And let me just back up. My oldest brother, he stopped talking. And my third brother, he had a nervous breakdown.
Mm.
And then my second brother had a nervous breakdown. My third brother, he had high blood pressure all the time, where he always thought he saw daddy's coming to him when daddy wasn't. And then he just had nightmares. And the day my father got killed, he had killed a mockingbird. And they said, if you kill a mockingbird, someone in your family close is gonna die. So he lived with that, like he felt like he was the cause of my father's death because he killed the mockingbird. So I was like 5 years old, and my house always felt like death. It always felt so quiet, and everybody would sit around the fireplace, and nobody would talk. By me being 5 years old, I was the runt of the family, and I could get away with anything. So I found the chance to make them laugh, and it's like been that way all my life. I found a way to make them laugh, and then when I would make them laugh, that would break up the monotony of them sitting around being so depressed. So I learned how to do that all my life. I've been like a caretaker of my family. And back in 2019, I thought that all of this was gone away, but it wasn't. A lawyer that was working for Nelson Mandela looked the family up, and they knew how many were still alive. So right now, only out of 7 kids, only 3 alive, myself and my 2 brothers. I'm next to one, and the baby brother that was my mother was pregnant with. So they found us, and I was doing a catering job one Saturday, and I was just busy that weekend. So I got this big, thick envelope in the mail, and it was the transcript of what happened in 1954. And then I said, well, I'm not going to look at it now. I'm going to wait and read it on Sunday. Well, I did it. I read it on Sunday. And when I read it on Sunday, Monday, I couldn't get out of bed because all of that came rushing back at me, like someone had came back and pulled the rug right from underneath me. Yeah, I'm going to be. And that, like that time, I was 70. And right now, I can still smell the scent of my daddy. And like I said, people think things happen. People say you got to get over it. Just get over it and let it go. But you do get over it. You let it go. You put it in a place. But if nobody bothered, you won't bother it until somebody says something triggered it off. And so we live with that. My sisters and my brother, they all deceased now except the 3. And I remember going to Florida, Pensacola, 2014. And my oldest brother sit there and cried like a baby because he never got over how much he hated people, the other color. He hated them. And I sit between his legs and I talked to him. We cried together. And it's something that you don't get over at all. You don't get over it. You learn to live. But I was the type of person that I know God chose me to do this. On November, back in 2018, we all had a memorial service down in Montgomery, Alabama, to celebrate those lives. It was like 25 people that was there, 25 families that had tragedy in their life. And it was like over 3,000 people that came from all over the world. That was their family that had did something to these people, like myself and others. I had to go September of last year. First Sunday in September, I went back to Alabama. I had to get the soil from where my father was hung so they can place that in the museum in Montgomery, Alabama. And I know you have heard of Steve Stevenson. what's his name? Oh my God. He wrote the book called Just Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a movie about it. And my father's name is mentioned in that book
Wow.
because of that. And that was one of the times that I really realized how our ancestors don't never die. Even they dead, they don't die. I found out that when I went to the museum, as I was walking down the hall going to be interviewed, they had all these Africa pictures on the wall. It looked like they welcomed me through that wall, down the hall. And as I was walking down that hall, all I could do was cry because I felt like they was reaching out to me. That was something that I won't ever forget. And it has, I wanted people to know, I wanted my kids to know, when they called me to let me know what they was doing, they were so grateful to me. And they would say, every time they called, they would say, is anybody with you? I just keep asking, why are they asking me, is anybody with me? Because she didn't want me to be alone during that time. And I would tell her someone was with me and sometimes someone would not be with me in the house. And then we would continue to talk and stuff, and she wanted to know everything. Some days I couldn't do it. Some days I could. And then she recommended me to tell my nieces and my nephews of my brothers that had deceased. And it took me about 2 or 3 days before I could get to talk to the oldest one, because I wanted him to know that I needed them. They needed us to come to that memorial service, and she didn't want me to come by myself. She wanted the whole family of Russell Charlie. So right now, Russell Charlie, of my father, his name is on the wall that it got water running down over it in Montgomery, Alabama. And they got his ashes sitting there from the soil from where they hung him at. It's in the museum. So I believe we all grew up with some side effect, because they just didn't kill my father. They killed my whole family. I mean, my whole family, even outside to my aunts and uncles and them, because they couldn't do anything. After my father was hung, my uncle and his whole family had to run away, flee at night to get away from keeping the people from killing him. But boy, my mother was so strong. She was a strong woman that she stood, and that's why I named Adelise. It's the reason why I named my restaurant Adelise, because of my mother was so strong that she did what she had to do to survive, to take care of us. And she was a strong Black woman. I'm telling you, when I think about her, it makes me want to do more. And then when I think about things that they took from us, and I thank God that I was never a bitter person. I don't understand why I was never bitter. But I was always a person that smiled, laughed, and everything. But it was always in the back of my mind. I went to the doctor one day for my job, and I always was sick. So I was talking to my doctor one day. I was getting ready to leave out of his office, and I was coming to South Carolina. He mentioned something to me about how the Black people get their land taken. So I just turned around and mentioned to him, I said, not only are their lives taken, their land taken, but their lives get taken also. And I said to him, my father was hung. And he looked at me, he said, come here, close the door. So I came in, I closed the door, and he said to me, he started dialing somebody, calling them. And he said, I got this young lady in my office. She's been coming to me for years. And I can't find nothing wrong with her. And I just did. She told me the story and about her father. And I want to know, could you see her? And could you see her now? I'm looking at him like, is he crazy? What are you talking about? But little did I know, all of that has been on my heart and mind, but how you suppress things in your life. So nobody knows another person's history unless they tell you. And if you would see me every day, if you didn't know this story, you wouldn't know I had that on my heart.
Mm.
You wouldn't know I had that on my heart.
All right.
And so, with that being said, we need to vote. We need to vote, not just for the state, for the locals. We just need to vote all across the board where everything began to happen. So we don't have to go back. So look like President Trump wants us to go back to 1960 and 54, 65, all that time. He want to be back there because I see the writing on the wall because I've been in a lot of stuff that I've seen so much as growing up that I know his mentality. I know where he is. A lot of people won't know that if they hadn't been there where I've been and where I came from. He is a Klansman in the White House. And I keep saying they finally even got to the White House. Those people are prejudiced. They are dangerous to this country. And President is dangerous to our country. We do not need him in office. We need to vote. I mean, really vote. Because when I think about, like Michelle Obama said, when she woke up in the house that the slave built. Now that's something else to think about. For her to be in a place where the slave built, and they built that White House with their hands. And we got trash up in the air doing things that they shouldn't do and treating us like we are dirt. They don't care. He only cares about himself. But I know for a fact, God is not going to let it continue to happen. After 400 years, it is time for us to enjoy our life, the life that he promised us. We got to get up and get what he wanted us to have.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
You're very brave. I think you talk about your mom, Miss Addie Lee, having a lot of courage. I remember the first time you told me that story, and I was buying that key lime cake from you. You know how I am about that key lime cake, and I see you, and you'd always be so happy. But when you told me that story was so riveting, and every time I hear you tell that story it grips me. And I tell you, thank you for coming on the show and for sharing that pain with us. And we're praying for you. We're going to continue to pray for you.
Keep me in prayer because I don't have no fear. God won't let me have fear of anything. He's making me to be strong because I promised my mother that I would take her name all over the world, which is called Addie Lee Gourmet Chicken Burgers. They going all over the world. And every time I think about it, I smile. When I remember one night, I was telling my brother Willie Lee before he passed, I said, Willie, I said, I got these chicken burgers that I'm making. And I said, I'm naming them Addie Lee. Addie Lee's Gourmet Chicken Burger. So he said, what? And I said, yeah. And I said, I'm going to take them all over the world. I said, because they are mama. That's mama's name. He goes, ah, ha, ha, ah, ha, ha. He laughed so hard. And every time when I think about what I'm doing, I can hear him laughing right now. And it's like a joy. It's like he's pushing me. They
Yeah,
push me. They push me.
that's awesome. God bless you. Miss Cleo Brown Scott Rowland. The crux of your book, of the book that you co-wrote with your father, right? The Witness to the Truth was the price paid by the Honorable John H. Scott. Please give us his history in your own words. The Honorable John H. Scott and your story, what you endured.
Okay. Well, after what we just heard from Miss Whitlock, I'm kind of at a kind of lost for words. I mean, I'm like,
So it's okay.
You're okay. You want me to come back to you?
well, I had written a piece just this week, well, last week, and I had published it on LinkedIn, and it was called OMG, the last Jim Crow generation is in charge. And I wrote about how we were thrust together. And it was like you were told you can't talk about it. You have to pretend like all these horrible things didn't happen. You just, oh, we're better people now. So we can just move forward, leave the past in the past. But it's like all of these people that are like 65-ish and up that have gone through all of these breaking experiences. And it's like the children that we grew up with, because in the piece that I wrote about the last Jim Crow generation being in charge, it starts off talking about Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, all those people, Jeff Sessions, born in the 40s, born in the 50s. And when the South was at its worst behavior, well, other than Reconstruction and slavery, but they were at their worst behavior. But my father's story, as I told you earlier, we were in this area where all of these Black people live. And so to control them, they would not allow them to vote. But of course, my dad was a pastor, and he was a part of the NAACP. And he had gotten involved. They had organized the NAACP in the late 30s when, under the New Deal program with President Roosevelt, that they were giving out all these farms to poor farmers, and they were excluding Black farmers. And so that's when my dad first got involved with the NAACP, and they were able to eventually get land for the Black farmers because of this whole national protest. And so he had learned early on that you should fight for what you believe in, and that you can win if you stick together. Right. So when all these Black people were not being allowed to vote, they wouldn't tell them the process. They wouldn't even tell them where the building was where you could go to register. And once they found out where it was, then they would pretend like they would lock the door if they saw some Black people coming, and act like they were away. So Dad tried to file a suit through the NAACP, and they did what they're doing now in the courts, appeal. So Dad heard that Robert Kennedy, who was the Attorney General at the time, was doing all these hearings throughout the South to try to figure out why so few Black people were registered to vote. And so my dad wrote Washington, D.C., and asked if he could come down to the hearing in New Orleans to testify. And so he went down there with 3 other people, and 2 of them testified, but they were the other ones, my dad was a pastor, but the other one was a big farmer. And so they pulled this full economic boycott on him. Wouldn't gin his cotton, wouldn't buy his soybeans, wouldn't sell him hay for his cattle, wouldn't sell him butane to heat his house. I mean, the full economic boycott. And when the Justice Department, who had conducted these hearings in New Orleans, found out how the witnesses were being treated, they actually, my dad wrote and asked Robert Kennedy, could he do anything about it? And so they came down, and I talked to the attorney. He just died year before last, but he was in his 90s. And he was talking about how he was from Minnesota, but he was so impressed with all the Black people he met down there because they reminded him of the farmers up in Minnesota. And so they took the case and filed a suit against the entire state of Louisiana and against East Carroll Parish. And so it was the only time that anybody has ever been registered to vote in a federal court. Because even when they won the case, the Register of Voters quit his job, locked the office, so they still couldn't register to vote. And so when the federal government got involved, that's when my dad was shot. He had testified in court that day. And that night, since they had won, he had said, well, they aren't happy, so we need to be really careful. So we were coming from prayer meeting, and we were driving kind of slow because it sounds like something is wrong with one of the tires. And I'm in the back with two other siblings, and my youngest sister, because they had the bench seats back then, she was in between my mom and my dad. And he's like, why won't that car pass us? We're driving slow. Why won't they pass us? And as soon as we got right outside of the city limits, because we live right in the rural area, they just swung on the side of us and right beside us, and then they shot into the car. And but the road did something wonderful. Right at that point, the road went, it was a deep curve, and we went up at the top of the hill, and they were down below us. So the bullet went in through the door and went upward and went out the window on the other side in front of my mother's face. And it was supposed to spread from the shell, but it didn't. And a lot of it went inside the door because my dad had the window rolled down. But I was 7, and I say that basically marked the beginning of terrorism. And I would go to bed at night. Every night I would go to bed and I would pray. I would say, dear Lord, if this is the night they're coming to kill us, Lord, please take me into your kingdom. And that was my prayer for about 4 years of my life. And it was terrorism, because terrorism is like random acts of violence. Mm-hmm. So you don't know when it's coming or not. And so you're getting threatening phone calls, and your daddy is taking your older siblings out to learn how to be great shotsmen like he already is, because my daddy was a hunter and a trapper, for business. So you're seeing all these things and running out in the night thinking the house is on fire, but it's the Baptist Association building next door on fire, and being told you got to be out of town by a certain time. And it was just a terrible time. And so but it was, as terrible as it was like learning that you don't ever back down, that somebody's got to stand up. Even if you get killed for doing it, you've got to stand up, that you just don't let things just go and go and go and go in the same old way. And see, that is what is going on today. It's like all the laws, when they gutted the Voting Rights Act, and the organization that did that, they have a singular mission to remove all protections, all legal protections for people of color. And that's when the killing is really done, when all the protections are gone. And that organization is filing lawsuit after lawsuit. They've identified which jurisdictions have the right judges to move them up through the system. And when Ms. Whitlock was talking, and I thought about how every single thing that the civil rights leaders of the 60s fought for is being overturned, and Black people are still around talking about, I don't see what the problem is. I don't understand. Why do you have a problem? And everything is being reversed. This is the most consequential election in the history of Black people since Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And people are still sitting around because we have not taught our children the history. They do not understand the patterns, and they do not understand that every time in the history of America that Black people have gained any semblance of power, that there has been a flipping of the script, and that they have gone through. I wrote a piece, What Goes Around Comes Around, 10 steps after Reconstruction, after the Brown decision, after Obama got elected, the same 10 steps. And we are falling for the okie doke, and don't even seem to understand that everything is being moved in place. And this is, 2016 might have been the last chance, because so many judges, racist judges, have already been nominated and moved into place. But this is absolutely the last chance to stop this road down where racists have power, that they have support in high places. And I know you didn't ask me all that.
No, I'm glad you said it.
But Miss Whitlock got me counter, because my sister is visiting in town, and we were just talking about this today. I mean, I was 40 years old before we even had this conversation about what happened to us. It was like, you don't talk about it.
Here. It stays here. You don't forget. You don't forget. You just don't forget. I was still
running past windows in my 20s because it was like I was trained in my mind that if the window is up and it's dark outside, you could you are a target. And so if I walked past the window that was dark and it was dark outside, I would move fast. I still can't stand the curtains to be open when it's after dark. And I'm 65 years old. Oh, my goodness.
And my brother, now, people would get killed. They had got to the point they had to stop the young men from going hunting because other hunter was out there at night to hunt the kids and stuff and shoot them. Mm-hmm. And that was horrible. My brother, my uncle's son fell in love with a white girl up the street. I would say up the road. And he went in to take some wood in her house. And when he was coming out, the insurance man pulled up. So the young lady got so scared and she started hollering, he raped me, he raped me. And he stood there like, what? And don't you know he went to jail?
Jeez.
And he got a grandchild by this woman as of today. And he stayed in prison all his life. Even when she recounted that she lied, he still couldn't get out. That was something.
Terrible.
And their children are doing the same thing
The same
that
thing.
they saw when they were growing up.
Yes. What they seen, they are doing it right now. They are doing it. So y'all, this is a critical time right now. I can't holler when I'm watching TV. I don't want to miss nothing because I want to know what's going on. Because I see what's going on, and it's just like, do y'all hear this man? He want what is happening. They don't want to be the minority, but they are becoming the minority. And what goes round come around. And like I said with my father, what was done in the dark came to the light. It went to a Supreme Court for my lawyers to take something to them so they can take it out of being suicide. What they did, I told her, the lawyer, the story of my brother that couldn't talk. He was 16. He was smart. He couldn't talk. He would go to school and the teacher would let him teach class. You know how kids would do when they're kind of smart. The teacher would sit back and let the kids teach the other kids. And that's what he did. But after my father got killed, he couldn't talk. He just stopped talking. And when he stopped talking, he said he could hear them talking about him because they was worried about how he was. But that went on a long time. And my third brother, he was a Bible scholar. That's what kept him alive, because he had a nervous breakdown. When I went to see him in Mount Vernon, Alabama, they had shaved his head off, and they had these things stuck all over his head. And I just stood there as about 6 then, and I cried to see my brother suffering that way. It was horrible. It was horrible. And my brother Ernest, right now, he'll call me and talk to me about it. First, when things started talking about my daddy, he had nothing to do with it. He couldn't talk about it. So I said, Ernest, I need your help. Because my mother always told Ernest and I, never let nothing come between you all, because you all are strength together. So he got his strength together and could talk to me and tell me things about my daddy. And I could still see my daddy sitting on the we had a Chester, like one of those box, what they call them, Chester drawers, Chester thing that you put quilts and stuff in. And we had a lamp up over it. And my father would sit on that thing, and he would come by and he said, come here, baby. He goes, come to daddy's baby. And I would come and climb up on his legs, and he would take them legs and he would swing them legs on me. And I can still remember all of that. I remember my father's whole life. He spent so much time playing with us, cooking. My father was a good cook. Comb our hair, wash our, on a Sunday, he give my mother that day off so she can go to church. So he spent that day washing my sister and I our hair, and straightening it and combing it and make a big dinner at the same time. He would get up in the middle of the night and fry a whole chicken. And then he would teach my brother and them how to take a chicken leg, and take the meat off the bone at one time. And he did that. Only person could learn how to do it was my brother Russell. He would take it and take all the meat off that chicken leg. And my father would have fun at night just doing that with us. So I have good memory of my daddy. That's why I know it's hard. And I see other family. And whenever I hear something happen to another family, it rocks me. It rocks me to see this stuff is still happening that happened all those years. And you could think now, out of all those years, it shouldn't be happening now. This is 2020, and we're still going through it. I'm just tired. People say I'm just tired. I'm tired. You're right, Cleo. This is our last chance. And I pray God is standing and watching and going to move those people out of the way so we can breathe. So we can breathe.
So we can breathe.
We can breathe.
That sound like a closing remark.
Hell,
Ooh.
gotta get Miss
Oh
Dorothy
gosh.
in here.
I'm praying with you, Miss Whitlock.
I tell you,
Thank you. And I'm praying with you.
thank you, Miss Cleo and Miss Annie, for sharing those for sharing that pain. You know, we thank you for that. We thank you for that, because I think people need to actually know the gravity of the matter. People talk
Mhm.
about it all day long. They think that people out here marching for nothing. And I'm like, my grandmom used to say, they think they're marching out their dry long soul. Well, it's not dry long soul. There's a serious reason why they're out there marching, you know, and
Mhm.
you wouldn't understand it if you didn't walk in our shoes. And I didn't walk in you or Miss Cleo's shoes. Believe me, you know, my life compared to your life was a flowery bed of ease. But I'm so thankful that you guys would come and share this pain. Miss Dorothy, I turn back to you. Miss Dorothy, is someone under your tutelage when you were training. Your star quality to me was familiarizing students with information that was totally foreign to them. If you had to train or educate a group that did not understand the plight or anger of Black America, what 5 things, if you made a list, would be your starting point for this challenging curriculum?
Honestly, I would start with the history. I think that a lot of what's wrong now and a lot of what we're being faced with now is these young people, and I'm talking about people that are 2 generations behind me, you know, thinking that they know so much and they can make these, you know, decisions and have this commentary on what's actually happening out there, but they're not getting the stories. They're not understanding. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do is put them together with a Miss Cleo Scott Brown Rowland and a Miss Annie Whitlock, and they need to sit with their elders and understand what really happened. We're not doing that anymore. There aren't any more elders, so they need to learn to seek elders to figure out what's going on. Because I'm always looking for or someone who can enrich my thought process. The second thing I would do is ask them, are they prepared to fight? See, because talk is really cheap. And I go back to my more radical days when I was back in college and stuff like that. And I remember Nikki Giovanni saying, "Nigger, can you kill? Y'all can do everything for A, B, C, D, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, but are you prepared to die for your cause?" And I'm not saying we should go out there and incite these riots and die, but are you prepared? I remember a police officer, and this was 6 years before George Floyd, had a young girl, a young Black girl. She had on a bikini. He had her on the ground, and he had his knee on her back. Somebody was supposed to die that day, right? So, and I'm not a radical, but somebody was supposed to die. Somebody was supposed to jump on that officer's back and said, "No, sir, not today." So we have so
Not
many
today.
missed moments. Not today.
Not
We're
today.
not doing it
Not
today.
today.
But we haven't gotten to that point yet. The third
Because
thing, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Because what?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I get it, and it angers me because the young people that I had the opportunity to work with, one day a young man came up to the center and decided he was going to come and slap up his girlfriend, and another one of her friends just ran and jumped on his back. And I had to explain to her, yeah, you know, woman beating is not cool. But don't you ever, as long as you live, jump on your brother's back to fight him in public. I said, because everybody else watching didn't see that he had hit this girl. He's seen another black girl jumping on a black. So we got to be a little more strategic in the way that we do things. Number 4, vote purple. We are so inundated with red and blue and this, that, and the other that we're not even thinking about what it is we're supposed to do. We already know the president has to go. We already know that. But we have no idea who's coming behind him and what they have to offer us. You know, so we're programmed. Just go straight down the line. And that might not be the best idea. That's what got us into the position we're in right now, because nobody took the time to find out who was coming up in those ranks. You know, all Republicans ain't bad. They're not the greatest, but they're not all bad. Some of them are actually in a position to make some difference. And I'm a Democrat, just so that y'all know, right? But vote purple, be informed. We're not doing that. We're getting on Facebook and taking, you know, bits and pieces from the people that are, you know, parceling this information to us. I'm looking now, and you can see who's feeding the information to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can see. And the last thing I would tell them is get back to learning. See, at some point we stopped learning about our past. We stopped learning about our history. We stopped asking questions. Half of us stopped going to the church house, COVID or not. So we stopped learning. We stopped reading books. We don't talk about, you know, James Baldwin. We don't talk about, you know, all of those Renaissance folks that, you know, had something to offer us. We don't talk about any of that. We want to make t-shirts and we want to make candles. We want to be entrepreneurs and all of these things, but our minds are shrinking because we're not taking in the information that's going to enrich us enough so that we have something to pass on to our children right now.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Because we don't have anything to them. The only thing we have to pass on to our children is a hustle. You got to hustle. You know, my sister came home with a t-shirt, and this is my baby sister. She's about 10 years younger than me. The shirt said hustle or starve. And, you know what I mean? So, and when you think about it, there's more to it than that, you know, but we've taken everything and compartmentalized it to the point where we don't even think enough of ourselves to think pray or starve, you know, do or starve, share or starve. You know, so we got the message all mixed up and messed up. And I spent a good deal of my time trying to undo that. You know, even in my current job, I try to talk to the young people and help them understand. You got to do a little bit better. Because our thought process is out the window. So you want to know what's scarier than this election? The state of the people, the generation behind me, the one that's coming up behind that one. It's gone, and that's where the focus needs to go. You know, I know you got to focus forward and focus on the future, but we might have to take some steps back and go and snatch them children up and give them some information that can change the trajectory of where they're going, because they don't know. They don't know. They still want to fight each other.
Right.
You know, they want to stand around and videotape a cop with his knee on a half-naked black girl's body.
We got to tell them.
Because I was going to jail or I was going to heaven. I've been there. You know, but it's different. Mindset is different. And that's what I try to leave them with. You know your worth.
Amen. Yes.
Worth.
You're doing a good job. And you need more people to help you.
I do.
And you need more people to help you. Children is my heart. Elder people is my heart. We used to have a daycare in New Jersey. I had that daycare for almost 20 years. And I'm still in touch with young kids. And that generation that we raised on that time, it's a different kind of generation. Because when they came through Little Stars of Adelaide's, they call me Grandma. When they came through that door, they got good training. They got lots of love because they didn't have love. They got a lot of teaching, and they still are some of the best kids right now. It's that little generation went quick. is different. But we need to teach them right now that the next generation is them. And they got to do better. And they can do better when they know better. Because we hadn't taught them all down through the years. They wasn't taught nothing about history. You know, they didn't want them to know history about how their ancestors slaved and worked. And that was because they like my family, like we used to say, my somebody prayed for me. And I still feel like somebody prayed for me to be where I am now. So I want them to know that we are praying for them so they can get better and do better and be honorable with themselves and be brave, because they have it. They have everything they need upstairs, right up here. They have it. They're some of the most talented kids that is walking. You don't have to tell them, but one time they got it. They got it. And as I was growing up, I know all I had to do is just stand back and look. I got it.
Amen.
So now our kids are smart.
Yeah, I never disputed
They are
that.
they are easily tricked
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they use social media
Yep.
Yes.
as their source of information,
Mhm.
and then discount real news
Mhm.
and call it fake news.
Yes.
And the real news they're ignoring. And
Right.
people are, I mean, like if you read the Senate Intelligence Report, you can see during the last campaign, all the fake Facebook pages sponsored by Russia, the Black Matters US page, the Blacktivist page, all of those Instagram, Blackstagram, YouTube channels, all of those things that convinced Black people, and they're still saying the same stuff. Black people not to vote. Democrats are against you. You don't need, your vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter anyway. And you're hearing the same thing starting up. And I mean, you had millions of likes and shares of these fake pages that were specifically designed to suppress the African American vote. And we would not be in the situation that we are in now if we had not fallen for the okie doke. And so you have a lot of young people wanting to do more, but we don't talk across generations like we should. And they don't really understand strategy. And like when my dad came along, they had what they call the citizenship schools. And they taught you who runs what. If you have a problem over here, this is caused by this office, this person. And I think maybe we need to bring back citizenship school, because then you would understand that your march, they don't care how long you march. You can march till you fall out dead, as long as you don't go vote and change the person who hires the sheriff, who hires the police, who makes the laws. They don't care. They really don't care about anything when you come down to it but the vote. And so if you see, that's why they would kill for it, because it is the most important thing. All other protections lay on top of the foundation of voting. All access to the economics has its foundation in voting. And until African Americans get that, like they told Daddy, they wrote an editorial on him in the big paper saying, why do Black people always go together and be voting as a block? And he told them, he said, don't Black people have a problem simply because of being Black? Aren't there certain things being done to us just because we're Black? Well, if all Black people have this same problem, then all Black people got to get on one accord to fight this problem. And that's the thing that they use divide and conquer now to say, oh, that's not your issue, and you're making good money, and you should go over here, and this group and that. But no, we need to sit down and strategize and say, okay, people who are in corporate America, this is what you need to be doing. People who are in government, this is what you need to be doing. Community activists, this is what we need you to be doing. Pastors, this is what we need you to be doing. We got everything done in the 60s. When you see Dr. King, when you see SNCC, SCLC, you even see you even see Malcolm X. They were in meetings, the head of the unions, they were in meetings together. They all had different ideologies, different ways of approaching things, but they were in strategy meetings together. Together. And until we start getting strategic, we can't solve this problem.
Can't solve it.
It was all word of mouth, because people talked to each other and they had the right conversations. It wasn't a post or anything like that. People that came out to see King years ago found out from a flyer or word of mouth. This is information that traveled through people that hit them in their heart. They went out there marched on Washington because they believed what Malcolm believed, right? So now you encounter a lot of people today who are not even sure what they believe. They're just reciting what they've heard. They're reciting what they've been told, not what they've learned for themselves, not what they sought out for themselves. They're just regurgitating information that they just happened upon. This is not something that somebody really schooled them on. This is just what happened, So, and it's getting really scary. So, I'm empowered to sort of do something about it. I'm not sure what, but you will hear from me again because something new has to come along. So we have to do something else with these younger people and how they're approaching this because it's frightening. This whole election thing is frightening. I'm even working the polls because I want to be present. I've been, inspired young people, get out there, work for the polls, meet these people, find out how this really works, volunteer to do something. Well, I added it up and it only comes up to $9 an hour. So I'm not going to do it. I don't have it. What you mean you don't have a database? How you sound?
Just do it for that day.
This is election protection in a way,
Right.
to have people who care about the election actually working. That's a part of it.
I digress, but again, so and I probably maybe slightly a generation behind you, wonderful women, but I just there has to be a different, they say one band, one sound, one, but there has to be, we need a different song. We need a different set of instruments that we're going to put in the hands of these younger people. And by younger people, I mean, those 30 and 40 and 45 who think they know everything. And, but we need to re-guide them. They need their minds renewed. And so I say first, maybe, get them back in the church where you'll get the truth and, kind of start from there. But, but
I had the honor of meeting and shaking Dr. King's hand. He came to Camden, Alabama with his little camper, and his daughter Yolanda was standing behind him with her hands on his shoulder. And we was going to Camden Academy High School in Camden, Alabama. So our principal would let us go through town, but we had to walk with a boy and a girl, to go and get a chance to meet Dr. King. And he was so, I tell you, when I hear him speak, I have heard him speak. And when I hear him speak now, it just brings joy to my heart to know that he did what he did. And I just don't want to let him down. When I think about the stuff that's going on, I don't want to let him down. I'm respectful of what he went through. And I want our kids to know what he went through. And they should know. They should know. Well, Dorothy, anytime you need me, you can call me.
Thank you for that. I absolutely will.
You can
Call
call
me.
me too,
Okay.
because I lay this problem firmly at my generation's feet.
That's right.
Yes.
Firmly
Yes.
at our feet. Because when
You're
we got
not
our little
alone.
affirmative action jobs
Mhm.
and our access
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
to a world that had been denied to our parents,
Mm-hmm.
we
Right.
started pretending like it had been given to us as opposed to it had been basically taken from them.
Right.
And that there would be no time when they would try to take that power back.
Yep.
And so we did not teach them their history. We
Nope.
did
Mhm.
not share with them the things we experienced. We just said, oh, it's all better now, so we don't have to talk about that. We were
Mhm.
like, leave the past in the past.
Mhm.
I mean, just like what we're hearing now, but it's sad
And this
that
is
we
the time to
raised
bring
our
it up.
children, and now we're just having those discussions with them now, trying to help them to, to connect everything. But
Mhm.
I lay it firmly at the feet of my generation.
And
Yeah.
that's where it belongs.
Yes. So do I.
That's where it belongs.
So I hope some young person out there will let me make amends.
Me too. Me too. Because I love them.
Yeah,
Me
I
too.
love them.
I
I
love them.
oh, but sometimes I think it was W.E.B. Du Bois who came with the Talented Tenth, and I think the author was, I think it was Manning Marable, who talked about the Talented Tenth and how we would sort of put the focus on those that were the best and the brightest. And I think that's where we went wrong, because it wasn't about who was the best and the brightest. It should have been those who knew the most about their history and who knew how to live it and knew how to tell their stories. So we skipped right past that piece of our history, the art of
Mhm.
storytelling, the art of, understanding
Mhm.
elders and things like that. We moved right past it. We went straight to what we saw. So we need some change within our own way of, sharing this information. And I hope that we can put something together where, we can get them out here to listen. All right, I gotta change it forward. I'm gonna lose power
Y'all,
here.
What a
y'all pray that I can finish this book that I'm writing.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pray that I can finish this book because there's the days that I can't write. Days that I can't write. But I'll get it done. I'm gonna get it done.
Miss Cleo, you have any final thoughts?
Just that we need to vote, and vote like your life depends on it, because it does.
Yeah,
And
it
that
does.
voting is power, and that the Senate and the
Mhm.
presidency, the school boards, the House of Representatives, I mean the local, I'm talking about the state house, because
Mhm.
after the Senate, the census is completed, whoever we elect this time in our state houses get to draw the maps. We are in this problem in the first place because we stayed at home in 2010 and allowed people to draw maps that gerrymandered,
Yeah.
that packed and cracked, and made
Mhm.
the power of moderates and Democrats null and void. And so whatever you do, this is the really, really big election, is who gets to be in office at the time of the census.
Yeah, they tried to cut us off. I work for the census now. They tried to cut us off, and I work in the office, and they gave us back our time, so we get to go
Oh,
on the 31st of October.
well,
So
that's awesome.
Yes. Good. Good for you.
in
Like
in
you said.
South Carolina. People coming from everywhere to help get us counted. So they went in, and that office is 95% black.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Good. Good.
So
Good.
Miss Cleo Scott Brown Rowland, Miss Dorothy Donaldson Porter, and Miss Annie Whitlock. You have got me so fired up. And I just want you to know, listen, I've already been fired up, but you got me more fired up. I'm so thankful for you coming on the podcast tonight. I just thank God for your strength and for your power. And I'm praying for each one of you, you know, that God just give you that extra little something. But you really have blessed a lot of people on this broadcast tonight. But most of all, you have blessed me. And I'm thankful for it. And I'm gonna definitely have to have this group back again. I wasn't wrong when I said that this was a star-studded cast, because believe me, it was a star-studded cast. And yes, Miss Dorothy, you're still fabulous every day.
every day, even when I don't feel
Can I share my website?
Please, yeah, definitely. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so if you want to learn more about my writings or the work that I do, it's www.cleoscottbrown.com. Just
All
leave
right.
off the Roland.
okay,
cleoscottbrown.com.
will do.
That's right. And if you want some good key lime cake, you better go down to Monk's Corner in the right across from Heart to Heart, where Mackey's is, and Barron's department store. Addie Lee's. Addie
Yeah.
Lee's. Awesome key lime cake, chicken burgers, fish burgers,
And I'm bringing on a new one, shrimp burgers.
shrimp burgers. Go down to Addie Lee's, and by all means, everybody, if you're not decided yet, you better decide tonight. Go out and vote. Get out and vote. This is not a time to play around. You've got to get out and vote. Once again, we're so thankful for having someone was getting ready to say something.
Voting started today.
It
Yeah,
started today. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It started today.
And everybody can vote early this year. Everybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Get out and vote, guys. Get out and vote. This has been the moral. Oh, someone's getting ready to say something.
No.
This is the Moral Compass once again. We're so glad to have the guests on tonight. God bless my guests. God bless all of you tuning in. Have a wonderful night.
thank you.